Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guest, Melissa Errico, is one of the most emotionally insightful people I've talked to in a very long time. It was just incredible to talk with her about her career and how she's approached her characters over the years. And like any good actress, she thinks about the emotional motivation behind her characters and why they're doing what they're doing. But I think she takes one step further and also maybe incorporates the reason why the creators created those characters, like the writers, especially Stephen Sondheim, somebody who she's had the pleasure of working with in many shows. And speaking of Sondheim, she's got a brand new album coming out on February 16th called Sondheim in the City, which is all songs written by that wonderful man. And then she's got a little mini residency at Birdland Jazz here in New York City from February 14th to 18th. And in the middle of that is the album release party. So that will be awesome to kind of combine everything and have a big old celebration with Melissa. Get your tickets now. Check the show notes for that. And as always, before we kick off the episode, my standard stuff that I remind you to do: leave a rating, leave a review, connect with me on social media. Find me on Threads, Facebook, TikTok, all the places that are way too many to keep track of now. Okay, everybody, please enjoy this episode with Melissa Errico.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is a Tony Award-nominated actress who made her Broadway debut in the 1992 production of Anna Karenina. She's since added exactly a bazillion more credits to her resume, including 93's My Fair Lady, Amour, High Society, and Dracula, the musical. I just like saying Dracula. She has a quadrillion TV and film credits, including the 95 TV series C.P.W, which is very cool, Law and Order, Blue Bloods, The Good Wife, The Jim Gaffigan Show, The Knick, and one of my favorites, Billions. She's also a writer and a recording artist and was a frequent collaborator with the late, great Stephen Sondheim for decades. And her 2018 album, Sondheim Sublime, was called the best all-Sondheim album ever recorded by the New York Times. She now has a new album dropping on February 16th called Sondheim in the City. Melissa Errico, Fairy Mom. Welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hello. If I had any commercial instincts, we would call it Melissa Co. My teenage daughter told me, she said, "Mom, you're never going to be popular because you don't sing Taylor Swift." I said,
Really?
Oh, my teenagers, yeah. And then she saw that, they're at that age where they know more about life, than the parents. And she could see she was possibly being helpful. And she sat down. It was late. It was almost midnight. She's 17. And she said, "And Mom, nobody knows who Stephen Sondheim is." I was like, that's not true, of course. No one listening to this podcast likes her now. No, you must love her. But she's a teenager. She's just trying to help Mom. But it is. It's a kind. Melissa Co. is committed to Mr. Sondheim and things like so.
Well, I think you have an opportunity for a really good crossover there. You just need to slide into Taylor Swift's DMs and be like, "Listen, T Swift, you and me, we got to popularize Sondheim." To be like when modern artists sample, the Beatles, and the kids are now like, "Hey, listen to this brand new song called Hey Jude."
Exactly. I'm not going to give up. It's okay. So I listened to my girls, and now we're getting me on TikTok.
TikToks. I still don't know what I'm doing there. I need their help.
Oh, really? You don't know? Oh my! Well, apparently we're getting. This is the week. I'm on TikTok. I got on TikTok, and
all right.
I had done it before with John Lovitz. John Lovitz put me on TikTok, and we did a funny Christmas special thingy, just a clip that he put on TikTok and showed me how to make a TikTok, and it was appropriate because it's winter now. It was a parody of "Baby, It's Cold Outside." And the words were by Adam Gopnik from the New Yorker magazine, but John Lovitz, the comedian, loved it. And we did a version where I'm the sexual aggressor. The song has been canceled because the man is the sexual aggressor, getting drunk and locking the door and saying, "It's cold outside, stay here, baby." And she's like, "I don't think I should." But now we did it that I'm the sexual aggressor and I'm really hot for him. And he said, "I just can't. Baby, it's woke outside." And then she's like, "Come on, we could. This evening could be PC and nice."
Is that recording?
No, don't. Da, da, da. He gets afraid because he might end up accused later of something. And,
I want to insert that at this point in this episode. Is it available online?
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube and it's all over the place.
I'm going to find a little clip of it.
Super funny. Yeah.
I really could stay.
Baby, it's woke outside.
Just have to go away.
Baby, it's woke outside.
This evening could be
Somebody listening.
PC and nice.
Don't touch my hand. I must think twice.
No need to be.
The original icebreaker I had was Melissa Errico Fairy Mom. Where did the Fairy Mom part of your social handles come from?
Ugh, my children are disgusted with it. They think that it was too spontaneous. It was my own decision. I had no counsel. I have 3 children who are female. There was a moment where I had a 2-year-old and newborn twins. I was not somebody who saw herself as a fairy mom, as Marmee in Little Women, but immediately the universe gave me 3 daughters and a Broadway career that I was struggling to keep moving. And I suddenly had literally a kid on each boob and a little one on my ankle in many pictures. And I was like walking around with 2 kids and this other one on my ankle, and it was just a whole new Melissa. And I realized that when I was growing up, I was never introduced to what fairies were, like actual fairies, like Peter Pan, and even going back to the 19th century fairies, the great artwork of these beautiful female, mostly flowers, a rose, amaryllis, whatever. And there was a little fairy, and those were beautiful works of art. And so I, in some way, felt that I was in a garden. We lived in Soho near Chinatown. So the kids were not fairies in a bucolic, beautiful countryside in England or in the Cotswolds or something. They were in Soho in Chinatown, climbing on brick walls and scaffolding and
like New York kids do.
Chickens and things in the deli, in Chinatown deli with the actual chickens, that was like the farm. And I saw myself as raising these downtown fairies, like beautiful, soft, emerging, playful girls in a tough city. In an urban environment. So I had this realized sort of idea that I was a mother to these beautiful, soft, emerging creatures and growing as it were like plants between the pavement, between each square of cement, this beautiful child.
I think Raising Downtown Fairies is the name of your memoir. That's
Downtown Fairies. I've written about the girls, I've written about, I think it was called, it was a Little Women article for a wellness magazine I work with a lot. And it was a long article about the pandemic and how I felt like Marmee. So my relationship to the girls, it just felt like fairy mom. And I also felt like I'm entering that age where I reparented myself by having kids, and I'm a showgirl all the way through. But I do feel like a lot of artists out there could use a fairy mom. I had a few fairy moms. Marion Seldes, Zoe Caldwell, a lot of the great actresses crossed my path and kind of, tapped me and sort of said, "You're there."
We'll go back then to your childhood when you were a tiny sprite. At what point, like when you were a little kid, do you remember that moment when you first started to get interested in? Was it singing? Was it dancing? Was it acting? Like what got you interested in this crazy ass business?
Well, it's a mosaic of an answer, really. My father is a concert pianist, but also a doctor. And he's an intense guy, sort of forbidding even, being a surgeon. But he would come home and play the piano. So music from the first minutes I can remember were an antidote to the pressures of medicine and health and death and things like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
And intensity and money. My parents were not wealthy at first. And so there was a drive to survive. They lived in Harlem with kids. My brother's bed was a drawer. So, and they really built themselves up. My dad went to Vietnam. So music itself was a escape and was European. My parents are both Italian. So he was drawn to French music. He played Michel Legrand actually a lot because it was popular music in the 60s. It was sort of the pop music. So when he would stop practicing Chopin and other things, he'd play Michel Legrand, and I saw this transformation in my mother, sexual and erotic and attached and warm and less stressed. So music right away is one answer. I was a very energetic kid. I not like Audra McDonald, but I know how she sort of reminisces and says she was hyperactive and so on. Her mother had the good sense to give her theater lessons. Differently, I was athletic and I did gymnastics. And then by 12, I had this really shapely body and curly hair. And I was just falling off the balance beams, plainly. And just too much of a kind of Jessica Rabbit, really, to do, gymnastics. And my mother had the good sense to put me in a theater camp. And I immediately got the leading role of Hetty LaRue, not the leading role, the soubrette. I played every Adelaide in creation, by the way, until I landed Cosette, and then turned into this more serious soprano. But I was a sort of, I mean this kindly, a sort of a bimbo superstar as a kid, because I had this shapely body and I could do flips and I could do cartwheels in every show. Sondheim, everybody's put cartwheels in the show. I've always had a great cartwheel. So that was a thing. I'll see if one day if anybody remembers me, if I do like Hello Dolly or something and I do a cartwheel at the bottom of the stairs. Is I just have a great cartwheel. So theater camp was an immediate fit because the things that were seeming weaknesses were immediately assets. And that's what I love about the theater, where our weaknesses and our frailties and our imperfections immediately find a home. And that's what I love about every theater actor. And that's why I like being a part of it. And I always identify with my colleagues because they've all found some frailty in themselves. That's been their key. You know what Cocteau always says, like you find, what does he say? Cultivate the thing people least like about you or most criticize, and you cultivate it.
Like lean into what makes you different.
Yeah, lean into what makes you different or even controversial. So the theater camp, and then I think I was completely finished when I saw On Your Toes that same year on Broadway at the Virginia Theater. It was a jazz musical. It was Rodgers and Hart. It starred Christine Andreas, Lara Teeter, and Natalia Makarova, the great old ballerina. And I loved seeing Lara Teeter turn this middle-aged woman, probably my age, but he flipped her over upside down and she was kicking, da-da-da-da. Da-da, it's so sexy. And it was a jazz-influenced musical theater with so much physical dancing. There was so much dancing and humor. And everyone seemed mad, absolutely mad. And I turned to my mother, I had tears, and I said, who are these people? How did they get up there? I think I thought camp was theater, but then I saw Broadway. I had seen it, maybe a musical or two, but I'm not like an Annie person. I loved the circus arts of On Your Toes, the jazz, the tap, the funny.
Interesting.
And I liked the sex. I liked watching that ballerina become a sexual force, So I think between the jazz of the score, I found my thing. And I've always tried to find that again. That's why I kind of do jazz now. I'm more Rodgers and Hart, shall we say, than Rodgers and Hammerstein.
That's really interesting. For me, I've said this so many times in other episodes. My story is that, I liked performing, I liked singing, and what really cemented it for me that I belonged to this kind of club of misfits was when Rent came out. And because Rent to me was the crossover. It's what Hamilton just did for this regular generation, the newest generation, right? Of sure. Bringing in their pop music into a form that actually speaks to them. Right. And it's interesting because like I the way the human brain works and the stuff we glob onto, I wonder if it has anything, if it's been influenced at all by the classical stuff that your father played, possibly.
Well,
right?
We also played Bill Evans in the house. Like the other thing I should say is that we had a very limited soundtrack of Donald Fagen, Pat Metheny, and Bill Evans. So now I love Brad Mehldau and other kinds of unbelievably evocative jazz players, George Shearing. But I was completely raised on a fascination with the piano and the chords, difficult chords. French, there's Debussy and Chopin. Well, my father was an expert at Poulenc as well. And then there's the jazz. So you're right. There was a landscape of jazz already in my ears. I have a very good sense of a chord. Like I like to sing pure. I'm not a jazz singer, but I do not want to be in a dull environment. I want an unbelievable chord around every note I sing. Yeah, so in a weird way, I am a jazz singer because I require the environment
And you said that you're attracted to the physicality, and I feel sort of the same way, and I think I can relate. And you mentioned just the sexual energy and all of this as you're describing it. It's a full body experience. Theater. It's not just park and bark.
Musical theater.
Yeah, musical theater, and that's what all this stuff is. And so, like, do you still find your home with all the TV, all the film, all the straight plays that you've done, the non-musical plays? Musical theater, does that still come back to you as like the epitome of what makes your whole body happy?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, when you say all this and all that, I did spend a good deal of my Hollywood life in a trailer wondering why nobody knew that this isn't what I do. I would sit next to Angelina Jolie and stuff and be like, God, I could really sing. I wish I could sing for her.
Yeah. Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. A couple other people have said very specifically about it's a full body expression. It's a need. Like, I think you get to theater, the proverbial you gets into theater because you need a channel to get all this energy out, or you feel isolated, you feel alone. You are a misfit who doesn't feel like you belong, and then all of a sudden you do, right? Because what makes you different in most crowds now makes you unique and special in theater. So I think
theater was kind of a place to organize my emotions. And I also grew up in a house where my mother used to whisper to me, we have a Ziegfeld girl in the family. My grandmother and her sister were showgirls and came over from Italy in the late 1800s, moved to the Bronx. There was a shipwreck, actually. And so they were in Boston for about a few hours, and they had the good sense to figure out how to get on a bus. Can you imagine what kind of bus that would have been with all their luggage from Italy and didn't speak English? They got to the Bronx, and they had 5 brothers and sisters. They got to the Bronx and the dad died, and they had to get out and work. They were 15 and they were beautiful. And my grandmother by 22 was singing on the radio, and her sister got discovered actually by Florence Ziegfeld.
Yeah.
And she became a Ziegfeld Follies girl. So we had a Follies girl in the family, and I used to talk with her, and I knew her. She smoked a lot. I remember the smoke and the feather boas and the kind of, she never, ceased to wear bright red lipstick. So I also had this feeling that there was this genetics as well, So I wasn't just a misfit wanting to join the circus, but I was a sort of circus artist born to the circus. In a sense, because a prior generation was inviting me, and I resembled her a little bit. I look a little like Aunt Rose. So I think really it was just inevitable. But I think you're right. I'm always interested in how other people feel. I do think that it was a physical, I was drawn to it physically. I think I just enjoy the music. I love the stories, the characters. I like making people laugh. I mean, the first thing was that, it was funny. It was always funny. It was quirky. And I would come out and I was smart, so that there was no question that I understood what I was saying. It wasn't trying to get a reaction. I just understood the script, Well, he didn't say that, Mr. Wet, I would have some line, well, I don't know, Mr. I don't know what the lines would be anymore, like of Hetty LaRue, but she would just sort of say, I don't know what happened to the check. I don't know. He took the check. He said it was his check, and I just said the line real clear. So the sense that I had good sense of a character's requirement in the script.
Right.
So that came in handy too. Just a good sense. I just had good sense, and I was funny, because I had big hair and a shapely figure, and so that was funny too. That you don't have to do anything. People are already going, "Oh my God, look at her, the high heels and the ass," So yeah. Well,
then the the Sondheim of it all, right? Like you were frequently collaborating with Stephen for years, and I guess
some people would roll their eyes right now. It's not that I'm not like Bernadette Peters, where he was writing musicals and obsessed with me. I don't want to have a false sense of intimacy, but I did work in 3 musicals, and I did have the crazy sense to show up at Sunday in the Park with George, which was the first revival of its kind, where I wore her clothes. Wow. That's where I met him. I met him in rehearsal. So what were you going to ask?
Oh, just getting into how that relationship began, which you just asked that. So
I'm happy to answer. Yeah. No, I could tell you, because he came to the first rehearsal he came to. We had already be gone by just a few days. And my background at Yale was in art history and philosophy. And I love art. So right away, the idea that I was a painter's model seemed to me pretty much what I think, if you believe in past life or anything, like I easily could have been a Viennese model to some guy, some genius. Like that just works for me. This idea of this being in his atelier, just undressed in the 18th century or 1900s. Yeah. Yeah. The sort of fin de siècle kind of thing. Like just to me, that's just so fun. And just it sounded stupidly, I probably should be more of a feminist and think of myself as this pioneer painter, but I wasn't brought up with women of the 60s, so I guess I had limited self-view. But anyway, I digress. So I imagine myself very easily a dot. And I showed up at rehearsal at the Kennedy Center with an idea that Raoul, being a Cuban too, had such intensity. I said, oh, he's so intense. And so if I'm getting ready, doing the color and light sequence, and we're in our home, I knew a lot about art history, and a bathtub is so appropriate for the Impressionist visuals. It's so archetypal to be in a bathtub. So I suggested to Derek McLean before we started rehearsals that he build a bathtub and I do the whole thing undressed, because a nude in a bathtub bathers are one of the it's an essential category of art history in the Impressionist era. The bather, the woman bent over a basin or seen from the back, like a cello, sort of leaning against her own bathtub. So I said, let's recreate the nudity of Impressionism. And then when he says, I have to finish the hat, there she'll be naked. Just, she can't break through to this guy. The propulsion to create is so great that he can't even follow the greatest invitation, where he promised he'd take her to the Follies that night. It's not like I just decided, oh, it's a work day, I'm going to try to seduce him. This is a night we put aside to go to the Follies. And that's what that's about. And it's a special night. And I still fail to even get that one night with him because of the urgency to finish the hat, which for me really is just a big magnifying glass on Stephen's point in that musical and maybe his point in life. So my first rehearsal with him was my going, oh, hi, Mr. Sondheim. I have this idea that we should change all the lyrics to color and light. And I'll be naked in a bathtub. And all you just have to do is change the stuff about the rouge and the lipstick and the stuff, because I won't be doing my face. I'll be in a tub. And then he just was just silent. And he said he could do like more scent, more soap. And so I would be dabbling myself with scent and, oils under the chin and putting a little soap. And that's all. It was a small little change because everything else will work. If my legs were longer, if my bust were fuller, right? She's looking at her body.
Right.
So the lines of that were inviting self-analysis, which you do in a tub. So anyhow, so he had this crazy first 2 seconds. Hello, could you change all the words? I was so young, and so that was fun, and he did it, and he went with it. So that was, that was kind of cool. And there's some YouTube stuff, where he spoke appreciatively, and Barbara Cook did too. So of that production. So that was a real nice start and a real creative, bold way to meet him. So that,
right.
Yeah.
So,
really cool. Right. I mean, it's crazy. I realize a little crazy, but
that is very bold.
It was so bold. You see, I'm older now. I would never do that. But I was a kid, and I think I had a good idea. And if you read some of James Lapine's reminiscences about Sunday in the Park with George, you see he wanted to do bathing. You'll see that there's some experts out there. Yeah, I have his book behind me. I could probably find the section, but they wanted it, and Bernadette didn't want to do it.
I don't know if you could do that now, even with like everybody in a camera in their pocket, and I mean all this.
Oh, well, there's pictures of my back all over the place, and it's on YouTube. Luckily, whoever put it on YouTube put a little like fuzzy bit on my upper body, so it's tastefully out there.
Right.
At the moment. I see what you're saying, but I'd do it again. I have another idea for nudity that I think would be beautiful. The Kurt Weill thing. I think, I guess you're right, though. Everybody's so abusive now of coming to a show. They now turn it into content on their own TikTok. And things, so.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll worry about that if I ever get a part.
Well, if you're gonna do it, post it yourself first, and then beat everybody else to it.
Yeah, or get a great lighting designer or something.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that's how it began. It began because I wanted to make something impressionistic that was vulnerable. It was really just to make her vulnerable so that she really was all out, intimate with him, and no chance.
Do you like that? Do you like being like going to these really vulnerable places in a public way on stage? Because it's safe. I would venture to say it's safe because on stage it's controlled. There's lights, there's angles, there's whatever, right? So it allows you to, I think, I'm speculating, explore sides of yourself that you wouldn't get to do in normal situations.
Well, normal situations are still better than the stage, but I mean, come on, we must all remember. I remember Nancy Marchand, the great actress. I shared a dressing room with her doing The Importance of Being Earnest, and I played Gwendolyn. Eric Stoltz was Ernest. It was an amazing production. I was setting up my dressing room, and she was right next to me, and I had all my pictures, and I had a little plant, and I had a little cloth, and I was really setting up my dressing room, and she had nothing. She just had like lipstick or nothing, really just the minimal. And she turned to me and she said, not in a rude way, but she said, "This is not your home. This is not your home." And I was like, She was trying to say something, obviously, about life and art. So to separate the two, which is something that I think I now completely done. Yes, when I was younger, maybe I did like all the attachments and the intimacy of falling in love with whatever, Stephen Buntrock and Finian's Rainbow or Marius when I was in Les Mis. It all felt like I was growing up. I mean, I was a young person, so the characters were having more life than I was, right? They were falling in love. I was getting married, and it was every play. I was probably married hundreds of times before I was married in real life. Sometimes I feel the characters were more mature than I was. Maybe high society is a role that I wasn't even mature enough to play. Katharine Hepburn, basically forced Philip Barry to write that play because she was living a love triangle in her own life. And she forced him to write that play to reflect her own love of one director and her other relationships. So she was living a complex life when she performed that. I myself was not. I'd never been married, certainly not in a love triangle. So it's hard to say. So yes, there probably was a side of me that enjoyed living through the characters and learning about love and sex through the characters. Now there's been a reversal where I'm more mature and have been married 25 years and been through a lot of different things. People I know have died, things that are, so now when I would come to, I think I have more to bring in a different way. We all have things to bring. When you're young, the adventure and the sexual energy and the curiosity. But then as you get older, you have the benefits of time, perspective. So your characters will be the older characters who will have that. So we're all welcome to have our different reasons. And as long as we are still alive, coming, with life inside us, but the information changes that you bring.
Right.
It does change. Passion is probably the best way to answer that. Passion was the most intense and intimate character I ever played, and a Sondheim character. I played Clara, and Judy Kuhn was Fosca.
Oh, I love her.
And I was a mother to 2 3-year-olds and a 5-year-old at the time. And the character has a child, and she also wants to be with Giorgio. And he eventually says that her commitment to him is not enough. And she can't give up her child. So for her, it's a lot, which she's already doing, meeting him in that room. So that was a very intimate show. And I didn't do it nude, what Marin Maisie did. John Doyle had a different idea. He had an amazing idea that we all wear the same costume, even though it covers many, many years. We all wear the same one thing. And so it was a avant-garde idea. And I had this voluptuous, gorgeous gold dress that was so rich and had these heavy, heavy petticoats. So I was, instead of undressed, I was just burying Giorgio under all this fabric. And I was lying on top of him when this show starts. So it had a sort of, I looked like an ocean that had just come crashing over him. I looked of fabric, like an ocean of fabric. So there was an orgiastic sort of look to it, I'm not going to lie, it was fun. It was fun. It's such a good show. Sondheim told me at one point in my dressing room, he said, take a good look. It begins with an orgasm and it ends with an orgasm. So I guess you have Fosca's death, the orgasm to death, but my orgasm begins the show. So it's a really incredible, intimate show. So if anybody looking for a good time, try to get cast in that show. It's also an awful time. Jeremy Sams, the great famous British director, said no one can survive a production of Passion.
In what way? What do you mean? What did he mean?
It just wrecks you.
Oh,
it just
emotionally?
Wrecks you. It just wrecks you. Yeah, it wrecks you. It wrecked me. It wrecks you.
Did it really? Like,
it kind of wrecked me for a bit.
I just heard the term recently called the exit practice. So it's like, what do you do to leave your character on stage and go back to being yourself, right?
What's it called? Exit practice?
An exit practice.
Oh my God. All you people have this mental health stuff we didn't have, you see. There's no exit practice in the characters of women of the 90s. Then exit practice. That's so interesting. So it's a known thing now to protect oneself, to come out of your character and back into yourself.
Yeah. It was actually Al Silber that just told me that in an interview the other day.
Well, she's a thoughtful young person. How cool.
She's 43. She's my age.
Okay. Well, it's still,
not that 43 isn't young,
it's
people.
Not that
We're
far,
all young.
But behind me. But it's one nudge, one generation. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So because we were talking about, the fiddler, and now in our class, she's a Polish student who's just going through, again, the Holocaust time of history. And it's so heavy that we're talking, again, it's how do you leave that stress, that anxiety, that 8 times a week, your body doesn't know that you're not actually stressed, but your brain does. So you can't tell your body, oh, this is just fake stress right now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but don't forget the Pinot Noir grape is the sweetest of all, and it's the most stressed grape. The environment is the most stressed. So don't be afraid of stress. I think I think everybody's too worried about the role of stress. Stress can be good for you.
Oh yeah, no, good things can come out of stress. I work best. If I have nothing to do, if I'm not stressed, I can't get anything done. But when I'm stressed, I am knocking out my to-do list so hard.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's good.
But, I guess everybody has a different view. I heard beautiful Aaron Lazar's thoughts about his having ALS right now, and he felt that maybe he needed more rest for his nervous system.
Yep.
Some reflections that he's had, they're so profound. What a beautiful man.
Well, reflection. Your reflection doesn't mean you have to slow down. But yes, I agree.
Yeah, we should all reflect, especially when we leave the theater. I don't always have the benefit of that. I come home right to the kids, so it's immediate shift. I don't have to work hard now because I have such a rich life at home. I just come home.
Mom, no one knows who Sondheim is. Oh,
yeah, exactly. And I get great advice from my teenagers.
Yeah. Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. Well, so Sondheim in the City, your new album.
Yes.
It's just beautiful, and it's these arrangements of songs that you think you know. The proverbial you think you know it, but then something you said earlier, I think, explains why you did what you did with this album. Was you said that everything you do, you want a full chord behind it. Mm-hmm. I'm probably just butchering what you said earlier in this episode.
No. You probably are picking up on Rob Mathis's contribution. The producer is a Sting's musical director and works with Elvis Costello, works with a lot of very evocative pop musicians. So we do a lot of cool chords and open tune guitars and world class, really world class, the most world class swing musicians, 14 piece horn swing section, 17 members of the Philharmonic are on it. So it's got an orchestra. It's really amazing. So there's a lot of texture, musical texture. That's not all, birthed from my imagination. That's also Rob Mathis is an icon. Mm-hmm. So I'm so glad you like it. It came really out of an instinct coming out of the pandemic, thinking that we're all hopefully were in something of a freeze. And as we come out of that freeze of a pandemic, I was thinking about Manhattan and the possibilities of Manhattan, the promises, the aspirations, the importance to defy certain resistances, songs like Everybody Says Don't. Mm-hmm. Also, the naive pleasures of, an inch of sky or a fly or two. What more do I need? What more do I need? How we all just enjoy the half a tree that we can see from our West Village apartment, but we feel so appreciative to be a part of this great city. I was thinking about Manhattan, especially after the pandemic, and I did a show called Melissa Sings Her New York, which was all the themes of my album. After 3 encores, when the encores were really exciting and really pleasurable because a lot of iconic people came that were being celebrated, like Donna McKechnie. It wasn't an all Sondheim. It was a lot of Sondheim in it. And it had the Follies in it because it had my own memories of Manhattan and my own Broadway baby aspirations are in it. And then Long Marriage. I was married in Central Park. I had a lot of starring roles, hard times, relationships that were destroyed or something, impossible. So many of us have half realized love affairs in Manhattan or, dreams of love. So that beautiful concert happened. I did it 3 times and then Sondheim passed. And I thought, wow. And so much of the show was Sondheim already. Another 100 people. I'm a girl from Long Island, wanted to get on that train to New York. Mm-hmm. So I thought for another year about Sondheim and these ideas I have about Manhattan. So then I made this record, changed it, in my mind from New York, Melissa Sings New York to Sondheim in the City. And I thought more about Sondheim's love of New York and the fact that he says he lived his entire life in a 20-block radius. So I thought about his feelings about Manhattan, which I think are sarcastic, ecstatic, romantic, ecstatic. They're not really cynical and they're not hard. He loved Manhattan. So it's a little bit of I'm sort of the Carrie Bradshaw of my own album, walking through his New York. And I do think that if we look closely at the history of people who wrote about Manhattan, people like John O'Hara or E.B. White, the great New York writers, Adam Gopnik, right now, people who love and really embody the energy and passion for the pluralistic sort of world that we live in New York. Really important to remember we're living in a time where a lot of people are asking to be a part of that pluralistic fabric. I thought Sondheim as a poet laureate, one of the enduring poets of what it is to be a Manhattan person. And I think Manhattan's in a little trouble. You can hardly tell uptown from downtown now. It's all CVS. And, it used to be so clear, that downtown in the 1800s was like Gramercy Park. And then as I got to enter New York, it was Soho. And for you, it's probably Tribeca. Yeah. Right. And now it's Brooklyn. But the idea of Manhattan is this amazingly mutable thing. But Sondheim has a great song called Uptown, Downtown. And so we have to remember the city that had so much color. And so we got to keep, I think, just caring about the city. Yeah. So it's a tribute to Manhattan as well as a tribute to Sondheim, as well as a kind of, this is a big word. People are going to hate me for this word, a palimpsest. Do you know what that means?
A palimpsest?
A palimpsest is palimpsest. It's a written document where the original writing has been written over, but you still see traces of what's underneath. So it's a piece of writing where you see 2 layers simultaneously.
Something reused or altered, but still bearing visible traces of its earlier form.
Right. So my character in the Sondheim is a palimpsest. I see and know the traces of myself underneath the album.
I'm going to name my next kid Palimpsest.
Yes. So the album has all this for me. It's a city, it's Sondheim, and it's a kind of double layer of a woman that I've created, but I see myself in the traces of myself through the whole thing. The Sondheim, the Follies girl, the married girl, I do little things you do together. And then all those amazing songs we have to remember. Anyone Can Whistle. Yeah. Is a song about people who can do extraordinary things like read Greek, but they can't do the simplest things. So many of us know creative New Yorkers like that. Yeah. That are amazing, but also deeply, deeply helpless on another level. Vulnerable and helpless.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. Smart, creative people who can't do basic things like ride a bike, swim, or drive a car,
Yeah. Or be touched, Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that Anyone Can Whistle is, in a town. So sometimes I don't have a literal Manhattan song, but it's very clearly an urban song. I had a lot of curators for this. So the songs I chose were deeply curated by some real heavy Sondheim nerds. So I feel pretty good about what we chose. Do you know the song It Wasn't Meant to Happen? Mm-mm. It was cut from Follies. And I'm convinced that Sondheim has a drawer in his mind from which sprang Send in the Clowns, but it wasn't meant to happen, is the same song as Send in the Clowns, but it's just super hard to sing. It's like the harder to sing Send in the Clowns.
Maybe got cut because it was too hard. And he's like, I'm just going to simplify it.
It's too hard to sing. It's super hard to sing. And so that's on the record. And it's really about the sound, or the spirit of New York regret. Some of us have this idea that we all come together. We almost made everything work. We almost did it. We almost made it fit, whether it's success or a company or a love or a community. Like we almost did it, but not quite. Still no regrets,
Well,
no regrets. Here come another 100 people. You know what I mean? Yeah. New York.
I love that. And then you've also got, let's see, I just want to plug real quick your Birdland Jazz Concert.
Oh,
February
well, the
14th.
Birdland is hopefully, please, folks come, because we're going to play with this layered thing, Sondheim, jazz, the film noir sides of this record, which are kind of in the Follies pastiche songs, the 20s and 30s sound of Follies. And we're doing a residency like we did last year, 10 shows in a row, where I live in Birdland. And I just, by the second or third night, I have no idea who I am, because we're just there all the time. Me, the band, guests, great people are going to come in. Famous trumpet players are going to come from, Catherine Russell's playing upstairs. Some of her band are going to come down and do numbers and go back up. It's like we're going to create, we're just going to be drunk for days on music. So check it out. It starts Valentine's Day. I want everyone to think Valentine's Day, Melissa, and come for 5 days. You can come for 5 days. It's cheap.
14,
come every day.
Yeah, so starts on February 14th, which 14th,
is and then come every day,
yeah.
2 nights, 2 shows a day. Come back, at some point. So it's the album release party, and it's also a kind of New York Valentine week.
I love that. Yeah, love in the city. It's so unique and special, and what's the word?
It's not just love. It's like love, sex, and survival.
There you go.
Yeah,
all right.
It's like that would be the sub story of all of this. Melissa on love, sex, and survival. Sondheim's incredible. He never gets boring. Just doesn't.
And his stuff doesn't write for genders. It doesn't write for times. It's timeless and genderless. It's just about relationships. And that's why part of why I really like Sondheim stuff is, and why even the recent revival of Company, I think, worked as a gender swapped sort of production, because it's just all about finding love, finding acceptance, finding relationships,
connection,
and connection. Yeah,
connection. And he may not be as famous as Taylor Swift, but come on, he's taught me how to live. In a lot of ways, how to raise my kids. Even look at Into the Woods. He sort of taught me how to parent.
Yeah.
And he didn't parent. He parented so many of us, though. So he's so much wisdom in his underneath, so much wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. So 3 questions I ask to wrap up every episode. Super. Just the very first one is...
By the way, let me tell you, you're just the most charming person on earth.
Oh, stop.
No, you are. You're so charming. And I see why you're so successful. You love what you do. And you're a real ruminator, aren't you?
I like to come in and connect. I like to connect.
Yeah, I'm so bananas for you. Okay, so all right, so we're wrapping up. 3 questions.
Okay, 3 questions. First one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
What motivates me? I can't answer the question. It's like impossible not to do it. It's just creativity is. I just wake up every day with hope. I wake up every day with an idea to make something beautiful happen, and bring people, together. Every day I wake up with hope. I've had so many knocks, I can't tell you, and I don't know why. I don't wake up knocked. I wake up ready to go. That's just me, I just wake up natural and ready to try again.
Oh, I love that. Okay. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
Oh, if I could, it's like this is like a past life therapy or inner child or whatever. Go back to your child. What would you have said? Is that what you mean? Like what? I just wish someone had just said it's all going to be okay. Did
you have a lot of stress?
No, I just was thinking it was so far away, And it's like, it might have just been better if I just had this feeling that I didn't have to reach so much, So maybe, is that what you mean? Like what someone could have said to me?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it would have been nice to say you're limitless and it's all there for you. So that it just seems so far, it's like the Wizard of Oz or something. It's the whole thing. There's no place like home, right? It's click your heels. Like we don't have to try that hard. But instead I was on the brick road and I went all these different places, and I like our new world. In some ways, I feel like people are very forgiving and very, shake it off and keep going. So I guess I wish I had been told that, but maybe I wouldn't have had the adventure that I had because I was so adventurous, and I would have been.
You
more
have so much
complacent.
adventure left.
I have so much adventure left. Marilyn
Yeah.
May, the great Marilyn May, is 96, and I wrote her profile in the New York Times. This time last year, I spent a month with her, and she makes me feel like I have more time left than I've even spent in the arts.
Wow.
So we do have, if we follow Marilyn May, you have like 100 years left. Most people out there, feel rushed. Don't feel rushed. Don't feel rushed.
I'm with you. I mean, I still have to tell myself that because I've done a lot. I can do a lot. I still want to do a lot. And, but then I always feel like I'm running out of time. Not like chasing down or death chasing me, but just in terms of the day, there's only so many things you can do during the day. So how do you prioritize what's important, right?
For sure. Well, we're giving a labyrinthine answer, but I guess there is this idea that we should not live in the future. You're doing a creative thing today.
Yeah.
And really live
true.
it. You're doing a great job with this podcast, for example.
True. Thank you.
Really warm, engaging conversations, really creative. So let this be enough today.
All right. So
let it be.
Last question. This is the hardest one. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
A musical.
Any show.
Like a television show?
Any show. That's why this is hard. You could do.
Okay.
You could do.
Why is it hard? One show for the rest of your life. I almost think if it has to be for the rest of my life, it would probably have to be like Shakespeare or something, because the rest of your life is a really long time. I might get a little bored of Sunday in the Park with George at that point because I already know it so well. I might think, oh gosh. You know what? I'm going to say a chorus line.
Original.
I'm going to say
Madonna?
a chorus line. I guess if the rest of my life, each person, I love the songs. I'd sing and dance. If I was super old, I'd be playing all the characters. And the idea of making it in New York, is so formative. I guess if I really had to just get it down to one singular sensation, if I was on an island like Tom Hanks and I just had a little screen and I had to just make a top hat out of a coconut, I guess I'm just trying to imagine this crisis of having only one thing to look at. It's just a sort of apocalyptic question. So I guess it would be chorus line, because I came to New York from Manhasset and I made it kind of on a line. But I also love all the crazy multiplicity, of people who are here. So, and the ballet, that beautiful song, and what I did for love. I think I could hold on, to that show.
I love that. All right. Well, then we said at the beginning, Melissa. I said it again.
Melissa. I love this. I was Melissa Co. and now I'm Melissa. It's some kind of wonderful, like, musical, like with a K, like Melissa.
Melissa Errico Fairy Mom on Instagram and Threads, right? And so where else can we connect with you? I'm on all these things.
Come and chat with me. Say hello. Get to know me. I want to get to know you. It's good.
Fun. And then you're getting on TikTok eventually, so by the time this comes out,
I'm on TikTok. I put a whole bunch on TikTok.
Okay.
I did some crazy stuff in my Uber car the other day, telling people about my day. And then I did something really weird at breakfast, and my children put it on private. They stopped it. They're like, you cannot do that. I looked so crazy with my cuckoo, like wild morning hair and my eye mask up on the top of my head. And my children said that I was going to become a meme immediately. So I have to learn not to be too willing to share the realities of a actress's life.
I mean, if you can be the butt of your own joke, then go for it. No press is bad press.
Yeah,
Or
well,
no
my kids
bad
put it on private. They thought I was going too far. So everybody,
No.
you can help me to figure out how far
Was it
to go.
embarrassing them or afraid you would embarrass yourself? Because that's a difference.
I just think my hair looks so bad. And I think you're supposed to be on TikTok looking so-called bad, but you should have makeup on and look great. Yeah, you see, I said, well, why shouldn't I? I looked amazing a couple of days ago at Town Hall doing a Charles Aznavour tribute. And then now this is what I look like in the morning. I think that's good for people to see. No. They said no. So
Well,
we'll see.
I can't wait for these conversations with my kids. That's going to be interesting. Dad, you're embarrassing me again. Like, well,
yeah, you're going to
this
be
is
an embarrassing dad. That's for sure.
We literally read, my older one is 9. We read a dad jokes book to go to bed.
Exactly.
He loves dad jokes. So
yeah,
he's my kid.
Yeah, I bet you're a great dad.
We have a lot of fun.
So anyway, I'll see everybody out there, but I don't have a plan to be phony. So I just may not show my eye mask on my head and what I actually look like when I get up for a little longer.
Fair. All right, you can get more of me at Theater Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. God help me if I know what I'm doing on any of them. Leave a rating and a review wherever you are listening. Thanks to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And Melissa Co., thank you so much.
Melissa Co. See you at Birdland, Valentine's Day.
right.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. You're amazing.
You too. Thank you. It's so lovely to talk to you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.